Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.
Yo, what's going on, guys? This is Alex, and welcome back to the Beyond Half Court podcast, episode number 4. Before we get into a topic I personally didn't think I would have to talk about, I have just uploaded my top 10 players the day I'm recording this on Saturday, so it will be Sunday when this comes out. So go ahead and go to my Beyond Half Court channel. If you're on YouTube, the link will be in the description below, and it should be on my other profiles when you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcast or Spreaker. It should be there. You should be able to find it. But if you can't find the link for it, just go to YouTube and type in Beyond Half Court, and you'll see my top 10 players. Really spicy stuff going on over there. I don't think a lot of people may agree with it, but I think it's fair. I think the rankings that I have are fair. So go check that out. I also finished ranking all top 10 players in each division position. So point guard, shooting guard, small forwards, power forwards, centers. Top 10 for all of those plus the players. My next video, honestly, for that channel, not sure yet, but I think I'm going to define for me what a superstar is, and then we'll go into who I think some superstars are. So if that interests you, go subscribe and turn on the notification bell. You can also follow me on Twitter at BHCT23, and you can see when I upload any videos, and you can see whatever I'm talking about, whatever's trending on Twitter. I'm pretty consistent on there, so go ahead and follow me over there as well. But for now, let's get right into it. And really the only topic that I really want to talk about today is this Robert Sarver situation. So for those of you who don't know, I think Shams is the first one who broke the story. So we'll go over to his tweet. If you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see the tweet that I'm reading. But for my listeners, I'll read it for you. So this came out on the 13th. So it was about 4 days ago from the day I'm recording. The NBA has suspended Suns owner Robert Sarver for 1 year from the Suns and Mercury organizations based on league investigation. Sarver has also been fined $10 million in complete training program focused on respect and appropriate workplace conduct. So with that, Shams also tweeted out that the NBA is donating that $10 million to organizations that are committed to addressing race and gender-based issues in and outside the workplace. So it's actually kind of funny. So this Robert Sarver situation kind of started almost a year ago. I think it was about 9 months, and it's been taking a pretty long time for them to go through everything. But it honestly makes sense when you go over to ESPN and you read their article about it. The amount of documents that they looked at. But before we do that, for those of you who don't remember, Robert Sarver was saying some pretty nasty remarks. Obviously, racism and misogyny were some of them. And I'm not going to go through this entire article that I'm showing, but we can just read this one part right here. I'm going to highlight it right here. All right. After the loss, Suns majority owner Robert Sarver entered the coach's locker room, Watson told ESPN. Quote, why does Draymond Green get to run up the court and say the N-word? Sarver, who is white, allegedly said, repeating the N-word several times in a row. You can't say that, Watson said, who is black and Hispanic, told Sarver. Why? Sarver replied. Draymond Green says N-word. You can't effing say that, Watson said again. So, obviously, this is a little suspect. Not sure what to think about this, right? Obviously, it wasn't a recording. This is more of a witness statement, I guess. So if you want to play devil's advocate, this is a he said, she said sort of thing. I personally don't care. If you're making such drastic allegations, I'm assuming you're probably telling the truth unless you have some underlying reasoning why you're saying that. Obviously, there's misogynistic comments in that as well. But it just gets worse, and I honestly don't feel like revisiting all that stuff. But for now, we're going to go into the article that was released about this whole situation, and pretty much when the news broke that he was suspended, we're going to go into that. So, about the documents, let's see, where is it at in this article? The investigation included interviews with more than 320 current and former employees, as well as Sarver. The NBA announced it also examined over 80,000 documents and other materials, including emails, texts, and videos. The video report was made publicly available online. So if you guys are interested in looking at all that, that is on this article. Phoenix Suns owner Robert Sarver suspended, fined $10 million after investigation finds conduct clearly violated workplace standards. This is on ESPN. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested. But yeah, that is a lot of documents to be looking at. So, it makes sense why it took about 9 months for a final outcome to come out of it. But yeah, so he is going to be banned or suspended, I guess, for a year. And here we go. So the NBA announced that the punishment Tuesday, saying the investigation found that during Sarver's time with the Suns and Mercury, Sarver used the N-word at least 5 times when recounting the statements of others. There was also instances of inequitable conduct towards female employees, the NBA said in its statement, including sex-related comments and inappropriate comments on employees' appearances. Let's see. There's something else. There was something else that he did. He also, so usually, all these like sexual misconduct stuff usually happens towards females, but he also did it with the male coworkers as well. So in my opinion, this guy is pretty trash. Now, my initial reaction to all of this news, it honestly wasn't a good reaction. I was kind of confused on why it was only a year, and the $10 million doesn't mean anything to me. Obviously, the NBA can't fine more than $10 million. That's literally a rule that they have, is the max amount of fine that they can do is $10 million. So they gave him the max fine, but he's an owner and he's a millionaire, probably a billionaire. I really don't know. I don't care to look into this guy because he's not a good person, but yeah, like the $10 million is nothing to this guy. And then he has to take a class, which I'm assuming he would take, during this year suspension. But to me, it's just like, I don't understand how it seems like there's pretty substantial evidence. They went through 80,000 documents and they interviewed over 300 people. Like, it seems like there was some pretty substantial evidence that this guy was up to no good and he got caught, but he's only getting a year. It doesn't make sense to me. Part of me feels like it's because he's the owner and owners are maybe held to different standards to just normal people. Like if this was a player, like there's no doubt in my mind they probably would have had a bigger punishment than Robert Sarver did. But I also don't know because it really hasn't happened. So I don't really have any, things to go based off of that. But I don't know. A year just does not seem right to me. I feel like even outside of the NBA, if you just think of like a normal workplace, like that person's going to get fired. Like they're gone forever. And like, it doesn't make sense to me. And you can make the argument that, yeah, he's suspended for a year, but he might virtually be forced to sell the team anyway, because when he comes back, like, what's the perception going to be around the Suns? The Suns are probably going to be losing their sponsorships. And that is exactly what's happening. PayPal literally came out and said that they are pretty much willing to get rid of their sponsorship with the Suns. I'm trying to find PayPal is threatening to cancel their sponsorships with the Phoenix Suns if Robert Sarver remains with the team after his suspension, and that comes from Clutch Points app on Twitter. That doesn't surprise me. So like, and even when that happens, right? If you are the Phoenix Suns or even the NBA, and you're like, you know what, fine, you don't have to sponsor us. We'll find another sponsor. Who is the other sponsor going to be? Because no one's going to want to be affiliated with the Suns if Robert Sarver is just going to be able to come back like that. That's not going to happen. So, it's kind of sad that it's probably going to end up this way, but, people were causing an outrage over Twitter. and I didn't think anything was going to change with people just complaining on Twitter like that. I don't think anything was going to change, which really sucks. 'Cause it's almost like we're being like, just like people are being ignored, and it's like the NBA is just kind of like ignoring the fact that they really didn't do the job that people expected them to do. And I think that's also the sad thing as well, is like the NBA is really good about giving punishment to people who actually deserve it, and like they usually do the right thing. This is like by far, in my opinion, like probably the worst thing the NBA has done in quite a while. It doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't. And I think eventually, people were complaining it wasn't going to happen, but if sponsors are going to pull out, and if you just think of like who's going to be the next sponsor, and the answer is no one, then the NBA may just end up changing their decision and banning him. And that's kind of sad that it takes money, it takes business for something like that to be done when it should have just been done in the first place. So, I'm not too happy at all about that Phoenix Suns situation. On top of people complaining, and I say complaining because, but it's not really complaining. It's more of just like, it's complaining, but it's not like a bad complaining. It's kind of just like I think everyone is just confused. They're trying to figure out why did this happen? And if you're on Twitter, you saw LeBron and Chris Paul tweeted about that. Let me put up the tweets right here. So yeah, we got the tweet from LeBron, where he says, "Read through the Sarver stories a few times now. I gotta be honest, our league's definitely got this wrong. I don't need to explain why. Y'all read the stories and decide for yourself. I said it before, and I'm gonna say it again. There is no place in the league for this kind of behavior. I love this league, and I deeply respect our leadership, but this isn't right. There is no place for misogyny, sexism, and racism in any workplace. Don't matter if you own the team or play for the team. We hold our league up as an example of our values, and this ain't it." And I gotta be honest. I mean, I'm a big LeBron fan, so you may call me biased for agreeing with him, but like I feel like LeBron just hits it on the dot here. It's just not acceptable. This is not acceptable workplace behavior, and there's just no way that the NBA is just going to let this slide. That does not make sense to me. It doesn't make sense that they're going to let this slide. Man, it's really hard to like think about more to say, because honestly, the just moral of this thing is just, it doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense to me. I don't know why. I don't know why they only gave him a year. And especially on the values thing. Like if you look at other, sports leagues, I'll look at the NFL, for example. They have a bad reputation of, NFL players, getting themselves into really bad trouble, with like domestic violence and stuff like that. And the players don't really get any sort of punishment for it, really. Not that like they don't receive punishment at all, because they do, but it's just not what people expect, right? So like when you look at the NBA, and the NBA, they had banned Donald Sterling before, and we'll get into that soon because that's something I want to bring up. But it's like when they banned Donald Sterling, that's what everyone expected, right? That was something that people thought was necessary, and it happened, right? And I feel like in this situation here, people were expecting him to pretty much be banned and have to sell the team, and that's just not happening. And I think that's why people are questioning kind of just like, what are the NBA's values? Because the NBA's values has always been about inclusion, and it's very hard to keep, you can include people, right? But at the same time, you have to make sure that everyone feels welcome. And, they're good on the inclusive part, because, the game is just getting, bigger and bigger worldwide. But how are people supposed to feel when like you just like behind the scenes, and you have people wanting to work there, but then they find out that the freaking owner is, just being a racist and having a bunch of misogynistic comments, and they're, he's touching people the wrong way. Like That's not how you run a business. That's just not. The values are not there at all. So I completely agree with LeBron on this one. Chris Paul also tweeted, and he says, like many others, I reviewed the report. I was and am horrified and disappointed by what I read. This conduct, especially towards women, is unacceptable and must never be repeated. I am of the view that the sanctions fell short in truly addressing what we can all agree was atrocious behavior. My heart goes out to all the people that were affected. And this is really important that Chris Paul came out because he's on the Suns, the team that Robert Sarver owns. That is what is crazy to me, is that a player from your own team has to come out and he has to explain that, yeah, I'm not on this guy's side. This guy's a bozo, right? And you guys saw the thumbnail. This guy is a complete and utter bozo. He does not deserve to be in the NBA. He's a piece of crap. I'm trying not to curse here, but he just is. He just is, and there's no way that the NBA is allowing this guy to come back. And I'm gonna tell you, if they do decide to ultimately ban him because they start losing money and they're not able to find sponsors for that team, and they change their mind, that's insane. That is insane to me. Like, and I know, like, we want they can change their mind, and we can be happy about Robert Sarver getting what he deserves. But I also think that we should also be looking at the NBA a little bit funny, right? Like, we can applaud the NBA for changing their mind, but we can also poo-poo on them because they never should have had to change their mind anyway. So this whole thing is just so bad. I really wish I didn't have to talk about it. This is going to be a very short episode. Really, again, not a lot of news. I'm trying to get something in the works for the next episode. So be on the tune for that. But the last thing I wanted to bring up about this situation was about the Donald Sterling. And the reason why I want to bring up Donald Sterling is because this is a very similar situation that Robert Sarver's going through as Donald Sterling. Donald Sterling virtually did the same crap with, being racist. We'll look at another ESPN article here. TMZ had released voice recordings of Donald Sterling, and this was during the playoffs, and the Clippers were playing the Warriors, and the Clippers were, and the Warriors as well, they were both, considering walking off the court because of what Donald Sterling was saying, about people of color. And I'll read one of the quotes here. There's one that I really wanted to read. Here we go. In your lousy effing Instagram, you don't have to have yourself walking with black people, Sterling told Stiviano. I hope I pronounced their name right. It bothers me a lot that you want to promote broadcasts that you're associating with black people. Do you have to? At one point, Stiviano asked Sterling, do you know that you have a whole team that's black that plays for you? He responds, do I know? I support them and give them food and clothes and their cars and houses. Who gives it to them? Does anyone else give it to them? Who makes the game? Do I make the game or do they make the game? This is very weird language. This is obviously racist language. No, this is obviously Donald Sterling got banned and he had to sell the team. And of course you can say, oh, he had to sell the team, so he just got a bunch of money. I mean, what is the NBA supposed to do? Just like hand over the ownership to someone else? And like, I don't know. It wouldn't make sense to like him not have to sell the team. He had to sell the team, especially if he didn't want his name on anything and he didn't want any part, of him being associated with the NBA. He virtually had to sell his team to get through everything. So when the Donald Sterling thing happened, like that was the appropriate response. That was supposed to happen. But when not Donald Sterling, when Robert Sarver does virtually the exact same thing, except I think the main difference here is that they actually had voice recordings of Donald Sterling saying that. I'm not sure what those documents look like. I haven't taken a look at those, but if it's if there's any sort of hard evidence that it's happening, where like it's a picture or a voice recording or it's like multiple people telling the same story, which that part I think happened, why isn't he getting the same treatment? He virtually, it's like we recognize that Donald Sterling did something very bad. Like if you were going to rank how bad it was, like it was up here, right? This Robert Sarver thing, it's like if you don't think it's like super insane like the Donald Sterling, it's at least right here. It's close enough for you to realize that this is still not acceptable behavior. And I can't understand. I can't understand why that in a very similar situation, they are not doing the exact same thing. Because Adam Silver was a part of both of those. Obviously, David Stern was the actual commissioner when they banned Donald Sterling, but Adam Silver was there. He saw it happen. So, and Adam Silver is like such a good commissioner. He's one of the best commissioners like in the sports world, and I can't believe that he didn't do it. And shout out to what's his name, Howard Beck. I'm actually going to share the screen one last time here because I want to play a clip. And I think this is very interesting. I will tell the truth this time. This is going to be the last thing I'm going to share. But here we go. I'm going to play the video for you guys. If you're on YouTube, you can watch it here. But if not, just listen. 2 minutes, 18 seconds. Got an interview here with Howard Beck and Adam Silver. Here we go.
I think everybody in this room would agree that if any of us had said or done even a small percentage of the things that Robert Sarver has been shown to have said and done, we would be fired. And I assume that anybody working at Olympic Tower, if they had done even a percentage of that, would be fired. And anybody who worked for any of your 30 teams would easily be fired. Why would there be a different standard? Understanding the complications of removing an owner, why should there be a different standard for the owner of an NBA team than there would be for everybody who works in this league?
Fair question. I'd only say you alluded to it, Howard, that there are particular rights here. Someone who owns an NBA team as opposed to somebody who's an employee. The equivalent of a $10 million fine and a 1-year suspension, I don't know how to measure that against a job, but I have certain authority by virtue of this organization, and that's what I exercised. I don't have the right to take away his team. I don't want to rest on that neat legal point because, of course, there could be a process to take away someone's team in this league. It's very involved, and I ultimately made the decision that it didn't rise to that level. But to me, the consequences are severe here on Mr. Sarver. Reputationally, it's hard to even make those comparisons to somebody who commits an inappropriate act in the workplace in somewhat of an anonymous fashion versus what is a huge public issue now around this person. So there's no neat answer here. I mean, it's other than owning property, the rights that come with owning an NBA team, how that's set up within our Constitution, what it would take to remove that team, from his control is a very involved process. And it's different than holding a job. It just is when you actually own a team. It's just a very different proposition.
Second row, right, Tanya.
Wow. This is a couple things that stand out to me here, and I'll keep the quotes up here just so that you guys can see it. Howard Beck had asked, why should there be a different standard for NBA owners than it would be for everybody else who works in this league? And Adam Silver says, there are particular rights here to someone who owns an NBA team as opposed to someone who is an employee. So again, like I said earlier, like to me, it sounded like, oh, just because he's the owner, he can kind of get away with it. And I mean, just based off what Adam Silver said, that's kind of sounding like what that sounds like how it is, right? And to me, that's not okay. And for Adam Silver to say he doesn't have the right to take away the team, I would like to know what would constitute his right for him to be able to do that. Because to me, again, Donald Sterling, they had very concrete evidence about what he was saying. So obviously they were able to take away the team, right? That seemed to make sense. And he had also talked about it being a public issue. Yeah, it happened. The Donald Sterling thing happened during the playoffs, and the players were going to walk out during the playoff game. That sounds like a public issue. They didn't want that to happen. So what did they do? They banned Donald Sterling so that it would just not be an issue anymore. Because, we're in the off season, does that please tell me if I'm wrong in the comments below. Please let me know. I'm just kind of, talking and thinking and talking at the same time. But it's like, is it because we're in the off season this isn't as big of an issue? Because I got to be honest, one of my friends, when I sent him the tweet from Sean saying that if that Robert Sarver, was suspended for a year, he had no idea what was going on, right? So like, are a lot of people just kind of like blowing this off because they didn't know what was happening and it's the off season? Like, this is a big issue. This is a big problem. And, based off what I've seen on Twitter, it seems like, just the Twitter population seems like a large majority of them. We're all on the same page that this is not a good move from the NBA. And that this quote here from Adam Silver is very dangerous. I can't believe that he said that. And then regarding that quote, Mike Bass, who is the NBA spokesperson, had said, Commissioner Silver's answer to a question about the rights of business owners did not mean to suggest that NBA players, team employees, and team owners are not held to the same standard of appropriate conduct. They absolutely are. And to me, my next question would be, what did Adam Silver mean by that? What did he mean by that? Because if that's not what he was trying to say, what was it? Because that's exactly what it sounded like he said. To me, that's exactly what it sounded like he said. So my follow-up question to that is, well, what did he mean? What did he mean then? Because to me, it just seems like they're held to different standards. Silver had also said that there's a process to getting rid of Robert Sarver, and having him not, be the owner anymore. It's like, you guys were willing to do that for Donald Sterling. Why not now? Why? My main problem here is just a lack of consistency, and when people asking are very valid questions, and the answers that they're giving, they're just not adequate to like understanding why they didn't do what they did with Donald Sterling. To me, these are almost the exact same situation. If you want to say that there isn't as much concrete evidence as the Donald Sterling thing, which is why he's not being banned, I guess, but like still, like if this many people are coming out and you have to interview that many people and you have to review that many documents, it sounds like this guy is a piece of crap. But anyway, that's all I pretty much had to say about this Robert Sarver situation. Very short episode. We're hitting the 28-minute mark here. Usually our episodes, so hopefully we won't have to do this again. Hopefully I don't have to talk about this situation again, unless it's to say that Robert Sarver eventually got banned. But I don't want to have to talk about this again. This is very, very touchy subject, but I think it needed to be talked about. It was on my mind. It makes no sense to me. The lack of consistency is crazy, especially coming from the NBA. I expect better from the NBA. They usually make the right decision. But that being said, my name's Alex. Thank you guys for listening. Again, all my episodes are here on the YouTube channel, Beyond Half Court Podcast, or you can also listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Spreaker. I also have another YouTube channel, Beyond Half Court. I've been posting ranking videos. I post Saturdays and Wednesdays, so if you're interested in that, go check that out. You can also follow me on Twitter at BHCT23. Shout out Belly Up Sports. Shout out Belly Up Sports. And yeah, that's about it. See you on the next one. Peace out.